in another article you wrote called Bring Me Men, you also wrote on feminism and how, quote, few poisons corrode masculine virtue, patriotism, and military strength more swiftly than the death of beauty, end quote. Could you elaborate on what you meant by that and how feminism and beauty have an impact on men being men?
Yes. There's actually a few examples I can give to this. And when I wrote that specific line, what I was actually doing was thinking about culture just as a whole, and thinking about different cultures and how what they think of beauty, what they think of aesthetics, and how that correlates to a sense of patriotism and just virtue as a whole. And what I noticed was that in contexts that didn't really have a strong idea of beauty, that didn't really place a high premium on aesthetics as a whole, that were essentially wastelands, those are the kinds of communities that actually struggle with being patriotic. There's something in men that God has wired into them to respond to beauty. It is in man to want to nurture beauty, to want to protect beauty, to want to delight in beauty. And you see this even with Adam. I've made so many references to Genesis in this entire conversation, but Eve is brought to Adam, and he is full of delight. In fact, it's the first instance in which we see man actually delighting in things. It's interesting. Man had seen God's creation, and he had been put in charge of all of it. But the first time he breaks into song and poetry is when he sees feminine beauty, right? And I think that's something that's hardwired into man, that prompts that beauty. Now, here's what feminism does. I think feminism is an intentional effort to distort beauty so as to weaken masculine virtue. And one of the things that comes to mind is this dialogue that I'm trying to remember her name now. Her name was Katie Millett, I think was her name, who went to a feminist gathering. I believe this was in the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken, and it was an event that her sister Mallory had put on, and basically these women gathered together and they're calling out all these feminist chants, and essentially what they concede is that their ultimate goal is to undermine this idea of patriarchy, and the way they do it is by sowing all kinds of degeneracy, from prostitution to everything else in between. And what you see in feminism fundamentally is this desire to tarnish feminine beauty. And I think God's enemies know that if you can tarnish feminine beauty, you can destroy what is most virtuous in man. And you see the same thing with transgenderism as well, as people manipulate their bodies, as they seek to redefine themselves, as they seek to become these androgynous beings. What we're actually seeing is the death of beauty. And the death of beauty prompts the death of patriotism. The death of patriotism effectively prompts the death of civilization. And so, to the degree to which you see an assault on beauty, whether it's in personhood, whether it's in art and aesthetics, that is a tactic that is meant to demoralize people, demoralize patriotism specifically, as an effort to essentially destroy and deconstruct civilization. In a world that seeks to sow ugliness and to distort everything that is beautiful, we ought to be creators of that which is beautiful. One of the reasons I named my daughter Arwen after the elvish princess of Rivendell is because Arwen in the Lord of the Rings was someone who embodied feminine virtue. She was the Evenstar. She was this light who had the potency to devastate darkness. And I pray that Christian women will own that and recognize that the beauty that they have been given by God is no coincidence. It's actually meant to be a potent tool of warfare, and it ought to be nurtured. It ought to be propagated. And so we need to be those who understand the power of beauty and build it and establish it and propagate it, multiply it absolutely everywhere we go.